OT's got bounds. This is a project called Resiliency in the Occupational Therapy Workplace. This is some of the background and a little bit of the survey findings that we carried out at the beginning of the project to make sure that we were able to focus in on where the particular needs were for Albertan occupational therapists and occupational therapy students. The voice you're hearing right now is me, Carrie Brown. I'm the project lead. And then the units in the module that you're going to listen to later. The voice you'll hear there is Annette Rivard, who is the occupational therapy consultant on the project and content expert. The project was supported with funding from the Occupational Health and Safety Innovation and Engagement Grant Program from the Alberta government. And of course, funding does not imply endorsement by the government of Alberta. So welcome. I want to take you quickly through a bit of what's available on the website, give you a little bit of an orientation. This is primarily an online professional development module. It's focused on identifying and addressing resiliency in the occupational therapy workplace. So that's for us, all about OTs and our resiliency, because we're very good at helping other people's and we're not so good about looking after ourselves. There are 7 units and modules in the handouts to go along with there's 7 units in the module itself, and then there are the handouts to go along with that. There are a number of other resources. There's some self-tests you can do, some reading, some very interesting YouTube clips, and some, you know, we've tried to pull together the evidence around what can you do, because that's really where this is all going, isn't it? How do we keep ourselves resilient? Because actually we are pretty resilient to begin with, but there are a lot of factors that can interfere with that. There's also a downloadable CPD certificate of participation that you can access. We recommend you listen to the modules first, obviously, and then do the self-test questions. And then from the self-test questions, it will take you to the certificate that you can download. So that's always a good thing for your portfolio. So how did we develop the materials? Well, like I said before, we did a background survey, so we knew we were current. We looked at all the evidence that was out there. There's not a great deal about OTs, but interestingly, it's starting to build. So this is obviously a topic of not just interest, but of need for occupational therapists. We talked to some key informants, and they were very insightful and gave us lots of information about where we should be going and focusing. And as I said before, the literature search was quite extensive. And then we also pilot tested the whole website with a group of occupational therapy students, and shout out thank you to them. So very quickly to tell you about some of our survey findings, we had 90 people who participated. Most of them were under 50, and most of them were OT practitioners, but we had a number who were also students. We found that quite a few people worked in long-term care facilities and community home care, but the distribution across the other areas was pretty wide too. So that was nice to see. So we know where we got some responses from just about every area OTs would be working in. Our key findings, one of the parts of the survey was the professional quality of life tool, and we asked people in that tool to respond to these statements. So I am happy. Well, it's nice to know, right? Most OTs are often or very often happy. We are happy people by nature. I feel connected to others. Again, people felt very connected. I get satisfaction from being able to provide OT to people. Yes, absolutely. We find it a very satisfying profession. It's very rewarding. And I feel invigorated. And again, people said yes, very often. Or quite often, even, so this was painted a very positive picture for us because our profession appears to promote our quality of life. And if you want to look more at the tool, there's the URL at the bottom of the page for it. But then we went on, and some of the other responses were not quite as encouraging. I find it difficult to separate my personal life from my life as an OT. Yes, people were taking their work home with them. I feel trapped by my job as an OT. Yes, again, people were feeling like they were trapped. I feel worn out because of my work as an occupational therapist. Yes, again, a fair number of people were saying they feel worn out and feeling overwhelmed. Because if you look at some, the orange, the green, and the purple, very often 30, almost 34% of the participants were saying, I often feel overwhelmed. Well, that's a big number, right? And so this gave us some direction about where we needed to be going. But we know as OTs, we tend to bounce back. We're pretty resilient people for the most part. Um, and again, other questions in the survey told us that. I have happy thoughts and feelings about those to whom I provide OT. Well, yes, people did feel very positive towards their clients. I believe I can make a difference. Yes, OTs very much thought they could make a difference. And I am happy that I chose to do this work. And again, overwhelmingly people, yes, very happy. But interesting enough, there's this small percentage, well, not so small, right? Almost 1 in 5 OTs said, nah, sometimes I'm happy, but not always. That's concerning. The other part of the survey was the moral distress scale, and there's the reference for it there. And we were able to compare this information to a survey that was done in the United States in 2014. So there were 224 OTs that participated in that, and their mean score on the moral distress scale was 50.63, and for our survey participants, it was quite a bit higher, 65.57. And we've just picked a few of the elements here to show you where people are feeling the most distress. So, to be expected to treat or write documentation for more clients than time allows, yes, people found that quite disturbing. Working with healthcare team members who demonstrate insensitivity. Yes, again, very distressing, right? These are elements of moral distress. Watching the quality of client care suffer due to lack of follow through with recommendations from therapy. Yes, again, very distressing to people. Then we asked people, in the past, did you ever consider leaving a position due to moral distress? Yes. Almost half had said, yes, I have thought about leaving. And of those people, did they leave? Well, again, half of them did leave. So people, are at times feeling very overwhelmed and unable to have any other choice or to affect any other change, but to remove themselves from a situation. And sometimes that's the most healthy thing to do. But you know, we want to focus on prevention and keeping people resilient. So hopefully it doesn't come to the point where you feel you have no other options but to leave. Then we use the brief resiliency scale. And again, these are just some high points from it, but our our mean composite score was 3.2, which puts the participants in the low medium resilience range. So not really high on resilience, we're sort of in the middle, but not really low. So I guess that's encouraging, but I would have expected us to come in higher. So questions like I tend to bounce back quickly after hard times, or I have a hard time making it through stressful events. People said, well, um, I do bounce back and I can make it through. But then what we started to see was a pattern emerge of it seems to just take a lot more time. So although we have these abilities, it's the time and the what some people actually called relentless nature of the job, that it was never finished. You were always needing to be resilient, always needing to bounce back from something else. It doesn't take me long to recover from a stressful event. Another question, it's hard for me to snap back when something goes bad. I usually come through difficult times with little trouble. I tend to take a long time to get over setbacks in my life. If you want to look at these more closely, you can just pause the presentation. So that's a very brief snapshot of what's going on in occupational therapy practitioners who participate in our survey and what we built the focus of the resources and of the module around. So what we know in a nutshell, right, many factors impact resiliency in the workplace. You're going to hear a lot more about that in the different units of the module. Many OTs have professional and personal characteristics that contribute to resiliency, but there are a number of factors that contribute to increased risk, right? And a lot of them are not factors we control. So we need to be aware of them so that we can work with our partners to change them. Often these are organizational, and OTs have limited personal control beyond leaving the workplace. Sustained exposure to resiliency threats in the workplace can have serious physical and psychological consequences, causing OTs to leave their positions and even the profession itself. Risk of resiliency in the workplace also results in decreased patient safety and compromised patient outcomes. So this has a huge ripple effect, right? This is not just, and it's significant enough when it's one individual, but then everyone in that individual's environment is affected, the people that they work with, the clients that they have, their families, their friends. So what's next? Okay, so what you'll find in the rest of the module units, they will provide detailed information about resiliency, bounce back. What does that actually mean in healthcare workplaces? It includes a clear definition, a description of the factors that increase the risk to resiliency, and realistic actions and resources that can be used to prevent and manage wide-ranging forms of threats to resiliency in the workplace. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your feedback. There's a place for you to give us that too in the on the wider website. So that's all I have to say at this point.